Hi, welcome to geometry. Today's lesson is about finding the surface area and the volume of spheres and hemispheres. So we've got the formulas right up here at the top. To find the surface area of spheres, the formula is 4 pi r squared, and the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. Now a hemisphere is half of a sphere, so you might think that the surface area of a sphere would just be, the surface area of a hemisphere would be the surface area of the sphere divided by 2. But when you take the actual ball-shaped sphere and cut it in half, there's a flat side that wasn't there on the sphere that you have to add in. So the area of that one flat circle is pi r squared. So you'll have the 4 pi r squared divided by 2, which would give you 2 pi r squared. But you add in that flat circle, which gives you an additional pi r squared. So the surface area of a hemisphere is 3 pi r squared. Now the surface area, the volume of the hemisphere is exactly half of the volume of the sphere. So if you take 4/3 pi r cubed and divide it by 2, you get 2/3 pi r cubed. Okay, so let's do some surface area problems for number 1 and volume, sphere problems. Number 1 says we have a sphere with a radius of 5. So to calculate the surface area, we're going to go 4 pi times 5 squared. So in my calculator, I'm going to go 4, I'm going to hit the pi button, and then times 5 squared. And that gives me 314 we'll round to the 10th place it says, so 314.2. And our units are going to be square meters, meters squared, because that's an area. Now to do the volume, we're going to have 4/3 pi times 5 cubed. So we have to do the third power. So alpha y equals number 1 will get me my fraction. And I go 4/3 pi times 5 to the third power. So that's 523.6. And this one is going to be cubic meters because our volumes are measured in cubic units. Okay, so for number 2, this time they didn't give us the radius, they gave us the diameter all the way across the sphere. So the radius is half of that. So half of 7 is 3.5. So the radius is 3.5 inches. So our surface area is going to be 4 pi times 3.5 squared. And our volume is going to be 4/3 pi times 3.5 cubed. So we're just filling in the 3.5 where we had the 5 before on problem 1. So let's see what that gives us. 4 pi times 3.5 squared. So that's 153.9, and the units are inches squared. And now for the volume, I'm going to go alpha y equals number 1 to get that fraction. 4/3 pi times 3.5 cubed. And this gives me 179.6, and this is inches cubed for my units. All right. Number 3 is a little different because they didn't tell me what the radius is. Instead, they told me the area of the great circle. So the definition of a great circle is a circle that passes through a sphere that travels through the center of the sphere. So it's the biggest size circle that you could fit in a sphere. This little circle that they have drawn is an example of a great circle. So the area of this great circle is 64 pi, and we can use that to help us find the radius, because you know that the area formula for a circle is pi r squared. So if pi r squared is equal to 64 pi, we can get r by itself in this equation so that we'll know what the radius is. First, if we divide by pi on both sides, all the pi's are going to cancel. So r squared equals 64. And then we're just going to take the square root on both sides to cancel that square. And r is equal to 8. So the radius is 8 centimeters because the area was in centimeters squared. So now we do this the same as we did the others. We'll have 4 pi times 8 squared for the surface area and 4/3 pi times 8 cubed for the volume. All right? So now we're going to go 4 pi times 8 squared, which is 804.2 centimeters squared. And then alpha y equals, number 1, 4/3 pi times 8 to the 3rd power is 2,144.7 centimeters cubed for the volume. All right, now we've done several sphere problems. Let's take a look at a couple of hemisphere problems. This is half a sphere. The radius is 3, so we're going to do 3 pi times 3 squared to get the surface area of that sphere. Hemisphere, sorry, half a sphere is a hemisphere. So we're going to go 3 pi times 3 squared. So that's 84.8. 84.8. And the units are feet squared. Now for the volume, it's going to be 2/3 pi times 3 cubed. So alpha y equals, number 1, I'm going to go 2/3, oops. What did I do? Sorry. I'm having some issues here. I apologize. Alpha y equals, number 1, 2/3 times pi times 3 to the 3rd power. So this is 56.5 is the volume. 56.5, and this is feet cubed. All right, number 5. This time they gave us the diameter of this hemisphere, so we have to divide it by 2 to get the radius. So half of 9 is 4.5 centimeters. So we're going to go 3 pi times 4.5 squared for the surface area, and 2/3 pi times 4.5 cubed for the volume. So let's type this in. 3 pi times 4.5 squared, 190.9, and that's centimeters squared. And for the volume, alpha y equals, number 1, 4, no, sorry, I got so used to doing 4s for the spheres. It's 2/3 pi times 4.5 cubed. And that's going to give me 190.9. Isn't that neat? They come out the same. 190.9 centimeters cubed. All right, moving along. For this last set of problems, the directions say find the missing piece of information for each sphere, round your answers to the nearest tenth. I'm going to start with problem 7 because it's actually the easiest one, and then I'll go through the rest of them. So it says the surface area of a sphere is 2 pi. What is the radius? So what you need to do is replace the word surface area with the formula for the surface area of a sphere, which would be 4 pi r squared. That equals 2 pi. And now we're going to solve for r by getting the r by itself. So first I'm going to divide both sides by 4 pi. So I'll have r squared equals, those pi's cancel out, and 2 divided by 4 equals 0.5 or 1/2. Then I'm going to take the square root on both sides to cancel out a square. And so the square root of 0.5 is going to be 0.7. So the answer is 0.7. The radius is 0.7. And they don't give us units down here on the bottom problem, so you just write the number. And that is rounded to the 10th, as the directions say, one number after your decimal. So let's go back up to number 6 now. This starts off with surface area equals this, just like the last one. So I'm going to go 4 pi r squared equals 196 pi. Divide by 4 pi on both sides, just like we did on the last problem. R squared equals, the pi's cancel, 196 divided by 4 equals 49. And then I'm going to take the square root on both sides to get the r completely by itself, undoing the square. So r equals 7. Now what makes this problem harder is they didn't ask me for the radius, they asked me for the volume. So now I have the additional step that I have to calculate the volume of the sphere. So the volume formula for a sphere, is 4/3 pi times 7 cubed. So I'm going to put that in my calculator. Alpha y equals 4/3 pi, I wrote pi, pi times 7 cubed. So that's 1,436.8. Okay? Now, number 8. The volume formula is equal to 25 pi. So I'm going to replace the word volume with the formula 4/3 pi r cubed and get the r by itself. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is divide both sides by 4/3 pi. So r cubed equals, the pi's cancel out, so then I just go 25 divided by alpha y equals 4/3. I put it in parentheses so you can see it a little bit more clearly. 25 divided by 4/3 is 75/4. Or if you want that as a decimal, you can just take 75 and divide by 4. So that's 18.75, which I think is how I'm going to do it, 18.75. Now, how do you get the cube off of the r? Well, you have to take the cube root. And in your calculator, if you hit the math button, option 4 is cubed root. So you do the cube root of 18.75, which is 2.7. So cube root on both sides, r equals 2.7. Now this is not the answer because they asked us to find the surface area. So now I have to sub that number in, 2.7 in, to the surface area formula for a sphere. So 4 pi times 2.7 squared. 4 pi times 2.7 squared. So 91.6 is the surface area, and that's the answer to the problem. All right, we're on the last one here. Number 9. They give us the volume, so I'm going to replace the word volume with the volume formula. 4/3 pi r cubed equals 400 pi over 3. So the first step is divide both sides by 4/3 pi to get r cubed by itself. Now the pi's cancel, and if I go alpha y equals number 1, 400 over 3 divided by alpha y equals number 1, 4/3. Oops, I did that wrong. There we go. 400 divided by 4/3 equals 100. So r cubed equals 100. And now I have to undo the cube, so that means I have to take the cube root. Remember, I press math, option 4 for cube root, type in the 100, so I get 4.6. Cube root cancels a cube. Cube root of 100 is equal to 4.6. But that's not the answer because they asked me for the surface area. The surface area formula is 4 pi r squared. So I'm going to do 4 pi times 4.6 squared. 4 pi times 4.6 squared equals 265.9. 265.9 is the surface area. All right. Now you know how to use the spheres and hemispheres surface area and volume formulas. Good luck with your assignment. Please let me know if you need any help at all. Have a fabulous day. Bye for now.